Okay, hi folks. Welcome back to this new year of the CAnD3 program. My name is Amélie Kenneth-Vallée, and I am the director of the program, and I am so very pleased to welcome you, some of you back, some of you new folks, to welcome you to our program. So this year we are showcasing, starting with a showcase of our alumni. So with this first presentation, so we will hear from 4 fellows from different periods, different cohorts, because we are indeed in our 5th year of operation. Cannot believe how time flies already. And so we have 4 years of cohorts of alumni to present to you. And so with that, without further ado, let's move to the next slide, please. So first, I want to recognize, of course, the amazing work and support that our partners have given us throughout the years. So many universities and non-academic partners. We are hosted at McGill, and we are funded by the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. Next slide. Et je veux commencer par reconnaître le territoire sur lequel nous nous situons en ce moment, où je me situe et plusieurs de nos fellows cette année se situent également, soit McGill, l'Université McGill, qui est sur un territoire qui a longtemps servi de lieu de rencontre et d'échange entre divers peuples autochtones, dont les nations Haudenosaunee et Anishinaabe. Et nous reconnaissons et remercions les divers peuples autochtones, notamment dont les pas ont marqué ce territoire et sur lequel les divers peuples du monde se réunissent encore aujourd'hui. We recognize especially this spirit of community that brings people together, as it is something that really animates us at CAnD3, that we hope to imbue and that we hope to continue in the spirit in hopefully for years to come, but certainly for the next year and next 2 years ahead as we continue with the CAnD3 program. So thank you all for joining us in this. Next slide, please. So we will have a panel of speakers, 4 speakers. So please, we will let them do their presentations. And if you have a question, please remain muted and put your question in the chat box anytime during the presentation, or raise your hand on Zoom during the Q&A segment. And when prompted, please briefly introduce yourself. Next slide, please. So today we have our alumni panel, and we are featuring here 4 cohorts of the CAnD3 program. So we have first, by order of participation, Mari Aaltonen, who is a chief researcher at the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare. She specializes in aging, dementia, and care policies, and she has over 40 peer-reviewed publications and expertise in using register-based data, as they do, and they're lucky to have in Nordic countries. Currently, she is a visiting senior research fellow at Tampere University, contributing to the Center of Excellence in Research on Aging and Care. We are also very pleased to welcome Jason Edward Pagaduan. They are a doctoral candidate in sociology at the University of Toronto, and their dissertation explores sociocultural perspectives of aging among a community of racialized older adults. Jason is currently exploring the pathways by which knowledge is mobilized for policy makers and stakeholders, and living it as well, doing walking the walk. And they are passionate about inclusive design and knowledge translation to make research more widely accessible. Something that's near and dear to our heart at CAnD3 too. Dr. Mila Kopashnikova, sorry, Mila, is assistant professor at Western University with a PhD in sociology from UBC, and they research time use among older adults and gendered housework in North America and East Asian societies. They were awarded the 2023 SSHRC Insert grant, and their current work explores how fear of falling impacts older adults' daily activities. Dr. Kopashnikova has received several prestigious fellowships, including the Marie Skłodowska. Oh, there we go. You'll have to say that one. I'm so sorry. Curie Fellowship at Oxford and the Japanese Government Scholarship. I'm also skipping ahead on that one. Maria Ahmed is a PhD candidate in sociology at Western University, researching social inequalities and their impact on population health. With a background in commerce from Queen's University and a master's in leadership and policy from the University of Toronto, her SSHRC-funded work explores how marginalized populations counteract healthcare inequalities. Maria is passionate about data visualization and making complex concepts accessible using both quantitative and qualitative methods in her research. And indeed, we are featuring in this panel several winners of the CAnD3 data viz and some publications as well of that work. So folks, new fellows, these are great examples that we will be sure to share with you of how some work that happens in CAnD3 can then become a publication. So this is work that Mila has done, and also just in general, fun visualizations, can lead you on the award-winning team in CAnD3. So that's it for me on the presentation of the alumni panel, and now we will turn the floor over to our alumni. And unless Mari has joined us, we may have to skip ahead to Jason's presentation. Giving it a minute.
Oh,
thank you.
Okay.
There you go, Jason.
Yeah. Hi. So I'm Jason Edward Pagaduan, as Emily has so graciously introduced me. And I just want to acknowledge that I am presenting to you today on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And I also want to acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit. And so, yeah, just a quick little thing about myself that this is a little slide that I've been trying to work on for like a public. I'm trying to try to get people to understand what evidence synthesis methodology is and evidence reviews. I know I did a little presentation, and actually doing the presentation for CAnD3 in February about what evidence synthesis methodology is kind of sparked this whole side project at work on just illustrating what goes on behind evidence synthesis methodology just to be a little bit more transparent. So I just wanted to share a little screenshot of that PDF over there. And so next slide, please. I just want to say a little bit about myself because I think that's really important. I do have a mixed methods background. I learned a lot of quantitative methods, which from CAnD3 and from my PhD in sociology, or for my PhD education in sociology and in qualitative research, where I did a qual comp. And I ended up doing more qualitative work, but then going into the workplace, I just started doing more quantitative work again. And so it's always good to have both, in my opinion, because doing a lot of quantitative or understanding what goes on behind the scenes in quantitative work is really what helped me become a research analyst and helped out with the evidence synthesis, because you're reading like randomized control trials and quasi-experimental experiments all the time and trying to discern like every single part of the study from study population, what was the outcome, how was it measured, and then being able to identify areas of bias, which is a whole other thing. So I'm a research analyst at the Public Health Agency Canada, where I work in evidence synthesis methodology and in guidelines development. Happy to talk about that more a little later in a later slide. And somehow I've also become a designer. It started off as a graphic designer where we were trying to find creative ways to communicate research findings. So one of the biggest projects that I was on was our team does briefings directly to Dr. Tem and her office on the latest research in post-COVID condition. And the format before I came was they just gave them a Word document of every single study that has been published and their findings. And I've created like I designed with my team, but I was the only one who had like any design background. I don't actually have a design background. I just learned on the spot, but I had a whole Adobe Creative license, and I just like created a whole report template that organizes the topics by theme and made it interactive and visually aesthetic so that it's easier to navigate. We've had really good response from Dr. Tam and her team, and they really like that template. So that's really cool. And so that leads to more like UX UI work, which I will also be happy to talk about. Things I love. I love birds. That is my bird, figure one, Kobe. We found her on the floor in late November and she was balding and not looking good. So we took her in and all of a sudden I have a love for birds. I guess that's what happens when you turn 30. And also I have a lot of other hobbies like skating, reading, and music. So good to know me as a person rather than just a professional. So I wanted to talk about CAnD3 because that's really what this is about. So next slide, please. So the thing that I got the most out of CAnD3, which I really had to think about this when I was making the slides, was to sort of build on my skills in communication and collaboration and design. I think that as academics, it's kind of an insular world where we talk to each other. And so there's this frame of reference, like they call it low context communication, in which we are so straightforward in everything that we say. And so there's not a lot of body language and there's not a lot of ways to communicate emotion in the way that we write. And I think that when our only form of communication is the written word, it really does remove a lot of nuance and context to the message that we're trying to convey. And so thinking back and reflecting, because it's been over 2 years already since CAnD3 training, I really appreciated things in data visualization. And then interviewing. So I remember this actually a lot because when I interviewed for my job, I forgot what an interview was like because we don't interview. I mean, like as a qualitative researcher, you're used to interviewing people, but you're never used to being interviewed. And I forgot that what an interview was like because it's been years. And so I remember there was a module about interviewing on how to talk about your competencies and your skills and translating that into a non-academic career. So that was a great session where I realized that project management is built into doing a dissertation. Time management is built into it. Juggling multiple projects at the same time. If you're an RA, you're doing your own research and you're writing comps and you're doing classes. So we do have a lot of skills and communication skills, especially if you do lecture and teach, that is translatable. For me specifically, I leaned on my teaching experience as a course instructor and as a TA for discussion-based tutorials in my interviews to talk about my ability to communicate larger, more complex ideas to a wider audience. Granted, the audience is for second-year university students, but it's still a skill that we can draw on that does translate. So I think it's important to recognize how much of our technical skills and competencies do translate outside of academia and to leverage those. The next one was just e-portfolio and plain language writing. I think this is where you get into more other forms of knowledge translation. I didn't realize when I made my e-portfolio that a lot of people would be referencing it to me, or like just on the weekend, someone had a conversation with me and was just like, hey, I looked at your website and I didn't know you did all of these things. And so there actually is like such a big value in having a portfolio of all of the different types of work that you do. And then also like with plain language writing, I think there was an evidence brief module that we had to do. And somehow that's just become my job now of trying to commit to plain language writing in everything that I do, and even in the way that I speak. So I don't know if anyone uses this thing called Hemingway editor, but it tells you could put a sentence in there and it tells you what reading level you're at. And you always want to try to keep it as low as you can and or within a certain threshold of grade 8. And so trying to explain like what a randomized control trial is, sample size, observational studies at a grade 8 level is like a new type of challenge that I'm really, really enjoying because you have to find creative ways to communicate it so that it's more accessible. And all of these things translated to my internship experience, in which I started working on multiple reviews. So my internship was at the same team I'm working on now, which is the evidence synthesis and knowledge translation unit, where I worked on 3 of these reviews. Three of them, I think, okay, 2 of them are published, and I led the last one, the impact of nutrition north. So that was my internship, and I managed to get that published. And that's actually being used in conversations with Nutrition North. And so the way that project worked was the director of Nutrition North, which is a federal government program that subsidizes food costs in remote and isolated regions, approached us and wanted to make changes to the program, but needed more data-driven decision making. Like literally, that's what they needed. And so a big part of my internship was collecting every single publication that was on Nutrition North, filtering through it, synthesizing that data, and presenting that data to them to help them make decisions. Because you can know the how it works, but or like you can hear it from people how and like the criticisms of the program from the people, but sometimes to like actually make a lot of these decisions, you need to ground it in a formal evidence and in a synthesized way. So like in an evidence brief or in a paper or a scoping review. And so I hear it's been used in these conversations. I'm not privy to a lot of these director level conversations though. And so I just have a couple of fun slides that I want to show about why communication is important. We don't need to go through every single one of them in detail, but so next slide, please. So a big part of my job now is all of a sudden like realizing that we do take for granted that we have a lot of like data visualization literacy. When you look at this chart, it makes 0 sense. And like I think that's why, like if it makes your head hurt, like that's a good thing because none of these colors match up. I just don't know really what's going on here. It's not very accessible, right? So, but like I think because we're in a PhD program or we're all like really smart people in this room, I'm assuming, like we know this is a bad chart. Next slide. And so, for the Office fans, like what is this chart even telling us? Right? Like how do we even interpret these things? Because yeah, like I think we do take for granted. I think that's the main message is we take for granted that communication and design do go hand in hand and that not a lot of people understand what is a good chart and what is a bad data visualization. And then on the last slide, please. It's things like this. I think the thing that I really want to emphasize here, center align, not great. Just never center align your subtitle. Here it says a poll was posted on the Scroll Instagram because that's super hard to read. There's a lot of things that we can scrutinize here, but I think the point is that we need to be more like original research, always great, but we also need to take the research that's already available and find better ways to communicate it. And so that leads me to just talking about like my job right now. So last slide, please. Yeah. So a big part of my job, I'm framing it as what we're doing and the problems that we encounter as we work. And so a big part of, I guess, I mean, a lot of people don't know what evidence synthesis methodology is and how rigorous it is, or anything about Cochrane or grade. And so one part of my job is communicating how, like being transparent about what evidence synthesis is. The other thing is directors and executives have no time to read long papers. And so we need to learn how to create evidence briefs that are short, to the point, readable, that uses the least amount of technical jargon possible. And then the last thing is I am currently so the UX UI work that I'm doing is designing an interactive web page to communicate the evidence from our team, the research from our team to a general audience and finding creative solutions to make it as interactive and accessible and inclusive as possible. And then another part of my job is providing scientific and knowledge mobilization support for the Canadian guidelines on post-COVID condition. Mainly my job is to look at the types of public facing material that they release, like PDFs, infographics, videos, and give them feedback on it before it goes up. And so a lot of my job is just like being able to review things and create like knowledge mobilization, knowledge translation products. So that's a lot of fun. I'm sorry, I don't know if that was over 10 minutes, but yeah, last slide is just my contact info if anyone wants to talk to me. And I have some additional resources here. I think Health Info Base is really cool. It's from the Center of Surveillance and Applied Research, which is one of the teams that I work in. They do some really cool stuff with Canadian data and they visualize it. I think the McMaster Forum is a good repository of like actual infographics that they make available for citizens. Like they call it a citizen brief. And then there's evidence briefs for policymakers and plain language summaries. And if you want to learn more about guidelines development and the guidelines itself, it's all over there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that overview and how you tied it. And just in general, appreciating to hear how CAnD3 was helpful and not just like connecting you with the internship, but also just in bringing skills to the table, because I think that's also what we want to remind folks that you got this, and yeah, it's just a matter of sometimes of realizing the translation between different fields. Thank you so much, Jason. We'll go to the Q&A, so folks keep your questions. I think we can now go back to Montreal, and we're always pleased to bring alum back also. Okay, so next up we have Mila, I believe. And are you sharing, do you have your own slides to share? You're just gonna go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, great.
Yes, all good.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mila Kolpashnikova, and I did my PhD in sociology at the University of British Columbia, so we have some connection there with Marie. And I'm currently an assistant professor at Western University, and I teach courses like drugs and society, race and ethnicity, and also like 2 courses on family sociology. I was accepted into the CAnD3 program in 2022, and it was truly a wonderful experience for me. So today I wanted to, or I would like to take a few minutes just to share with you some of my personal experience and journey with CAnD3, and I want to particularly focus on how it helped me professionally and personally. So one of the things that really stood out to me during this CAnD3 experience is how we actually took time and dove into ggplot, and that's a package in R to create different visualization. And it wasn't just like a quick overview, right? Sometimes you have these trainings where you have like a just overview of this package, what it can do, right? But it was kind of a structured and, detailed and quite practical, to be honest. And I really, appreciated how the program took us step by step through this ggplot package and made us understand it and how to use it more effectively. So I kind of, by the end of the program, I actually really felt that I have mastered it. So I became a master of ggplot. So I absolutely loved how this process turned out. And it gave me a lot of confidence in terms of like how to use ggplot in my own work, which I didn't have before this program. So then let me just maybe unravel or explain a few direct influences on this had on my work. So first and foremost, I started using R right now for creating visualizations for most of my academic papers. So before I would use like different software, mostly focusing on Stata, etc., right? But Stata doesn't produce as beautiful graphs as R does. And even though like before CAnD3, I kind of was okay with R, but I didn't use ggplot to, I think I didn't use ggplot to its fullest potential before this program. And in fact, as a result of the Dragon's Den visualization competition at CAnD3, we published a paper in journal called Socios together with Zilin, who's a postdoc at CAnD3, and Amelie, who all of you know. And I think that this the preparation of the visualization for this competition actually helped me a lot in terms of like figuring out how to do it for actual publications. And I'm really proud of this paper, and I can confidently say that the quality of the visuals created by ggplot in this publication really contributed to the strength of this paper, and it was a specific paper for visualizations. It's not like a research paper, but a visualization paper. Then beyond creating plots, from my experience of using with ggplot, it kind of extended to a broader use of R, and specifically for the entirety of a research process. So, and this was mostly due to this module that we did at CAnD3, which was on replication, right? Replication of research. And basically before the CAnD3 program, I used R, but it was very sporadic and only like for specific tasks, right? And I think now what I'm confident about is that I can and actually do incorporate R into the entire research workflow, like from cleaning to wrangling to analysis and visualizations as well. So I think this replication module also at CAnD3 was very good, and it was the one that was responsible for kind of streamlining my research process and making it much easier to understand how to construct analysis for future new papers. And then also like knowing this R and ggplot, et cetera, kind of helped me in being more effective in terms of mentoring and overseeing students who prefer using R, right? So these are the skills that I gained during the CAnD3 training, and now I have this better understanding how to better guide them and make sure that they produce high quality and also reproducible visualizations and analysis. So for example, one of my students right now is working on a paper analyzing satisfaction with division of household labor. That's my specific, one of my specific areas of interest. And she does all of the analysis in R. And for that, again, I used this reproducibility project that we did for CAnD3 to show her and to see, to tell her that this is what I expect for the code, how to look like, right? So it was pretty easy to show to other people and communicate the expectations. And in addition to these academic and professional skills that I've gained, I think CAnD3 helped me in this one or another very serendipitous way. So it kind of helped me a lot in finding friends. So when I moved to Western University last year, right, it was kind of a very smooth transition because I had already formed connections with several people through CAnD3, right? And knowing that I had already a community waiting for me at Western University, and even though it was a very new environment with London, who goes to London from Toronto? Sorry. But it was kind of still an amazing feeling because I knew that there were people there. And so I think it's quite rare to find this blend of research excellence and personal support in a single program. And the friendships that I made during CAnD3 have been very supportive and very meaningful, and they also helped me to grow professionally as well. And I didn't expect that to happen, right, from one single program. So I think also like this networking at CAnD3 is very important. So please make sure that you get to know people in your cohort. So just to sum up in summary, CAnD3 had played, I think, a very critical role in shaping both my professional experiences and also in building my personal network. And so I think that's all for me. And I thank you all for listening to my story. And I hope that you too make the most of this program. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mila. And I think it's worth saying, because I do this sometimes where I like try to peel back a little bit, you know, the meta of what just happened. Thank you for telling us the story in the way that you did without, you know, support material. So we're big on data visualizations, but sometimes just removing that and asking us to just focus on the story and the words with the right prep, because it didn't just happen, is also a reminder that we are human and that kind of connection is really valuable. So thank you for that. Maria, now you're next.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Okay, amazing. So thank you so much for inviting me, Emily and team. So just as a quick intro, I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate at Western University in London, Ontario. Western is located on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and Chononton nations on lands connected with the London Township and the Sombra Treaties of 1796 and the Dishwood One Spoon Covenant Wampum. So just so you understand my research interests, I do focus on social inequalities over the life course, and I have a particular focus on maternal and child health. And on a personal level, I'm a mom to 3 beautiful girls, and in my free time, you'll find me playing video games on the couch. I was accepted into the CAnD3 program just last year, so I'm part of the 2023-2024 cohort. And what I thought that I would do is kind of relate some of the key modules that I just went through, they're so fresh in my mind, with direct products that I produce as a result of learning them. So next slide, please. So I cannot say this enough. CAnD3 really does supply you with the toolkits to take your work to the next level. So one of the items is the programming languages that you learn at CAnD3. That's the first bullet, if you could just click. So one of the things you'll learn is R. Mila went over in great detail. I cannot stress enough the quality of learning that you get from the R practice through CAnD3. But then you also get a few other programming languages, and I'll give you a little snapshot of what that looked like in the next slide. But Python, and huge shout out to Zakif for getting us set up for that. I know he's not here, but please pass that on. And I ended up using these in my StatCAN internship. Another item is that will become your normal lingo is DAGs. And I ended up using a DAG directly on my PhD research proposal defense. And I'll show you a snapshot of what that looks like. The entire idea of data visualization and how to tell a data story, I ended up using, these are multiple modules that I ended up using to put together my poster for the Population Association of America. And then finally, our culmination project, which is the e-portfolio, turned it into kind of a website. And I've been using that as kind of a resume and workshop networking tool. So if you go to the next slide, I'll give you a little snippet of what that looks like. So I started my internship at StatCAN, and they said, Maria, one of the things we want you to do is daily read the news, and these are the areas we're interested in, and just read the news daily, and then just give us a synopsis of the news based on the areas that are of interest to us. And I said, you know, that's great. I love reading the news. I don't mind doing this for you, but you know, I could do this so much faster. And lo and behold, here's a little snippet of my Python script. And Python can be programmed to pull key news articles from different places, put them together, put it in an Excel sheet, save it for you every day, run every day for you. So my job is really now simplified to reviewing those news articles and saying, are these relevant, not relevant? And then you know, like I've just simplified the process significantly. My boss is impressed, and I got my work done pretty quickly. Next, if you click next. So I said that I mentioned that I used DAGs directly on my research proposal presentation. This is my presentation. So if you click next, this is a visual of my DAG, which you're going to learn how it is that different determinants or predictors are connected to your mediating variables, are connected to the key mechanism that is causing or may result in the final outcome. And having this visual made it so easy for the non-quantitative individuals as well to understand what it is that I'm doing with my research. If you click next, this visual shows you how to tell a data story. And this is my poster from the Population Association of America. I made my poster super interactive. There's actually QR codes in there so that you can actually go look up these articles that are part of my lit review. The visuals are designed in a way that we learn here in CAnD3. Anybody should be able to look at that and understand what's going on. Very simple, and like Jason said, grade 8 level, where you can kind of look at it and understand the story. And then one of the final deliverables, if you click next, is this ePortfolio website, and you can kind of see how I've kind of set that up. And I end up using this for my resume. It's something that I have on as a mobile app on my phone. So when I go to conferences, this is where I direct them to. I have a way for people to stay in touch with me and take a look at all of the different projects that I'm working on. So this is just a little bit of an idea of how CAnD3 translates directly into deliverables that you can take home with you and use continuously throughout your academic and hopefully your professional career as well. And so next slide, I thought that I'd kind of give you a little bit of an overview of my StatsCAN internship. So I'm working currently with the Health Analysis Division. The project I'm assisting them with is the Canadian Cancer Registry, and linking that registry with other very important databases, such as the Vital Statistics database, as well as tax data. And something unique that's coming out of this is this ability to understand what happens before the health outcome. And so we're looking at maternal socioeconomic status and connecting it with pediatric cancer outcomes. Really cool thing that's happening at StatsCAN right now is they're moving away from SAS and they're using R. So it is such a huge bonus for you to be able to write that on your resume that you are adept at R. And so the division I walked into is literally trying to move all of their projects from SAS to R. Any new projects have to be started in R. When they found out that I already knew how to use this, they were just so happy. And so, I'm producing tables and visualizations for them to validate the data, and then turning one of the manuscripts so that it's publication ready. Yeah, I think I want to just kind of echo a little bit of what Mila said as well about the connections you make at CAnD3 and how valuable they are. Mila and I also met at over the summer in Montreal, and it was so lovely to find somebody also at Western, and as well the connections that I've made with my partner for the Dragon's Den visualization, and I are now best buddies. So there is so much that you can get from CAnD3, and I just wanted to leave just a few tips. You're going to get how much you put into this. So for example, I blocked off an entire day so that is my CAnD3 day. I'm going to be doing my readings, making sure I get my, homework done, everything done, because that's what's going to lead to my success. And so I can't stress enough to get your schedule organized so that you give it the time that it deserves, and you're going to get out just that much out of it. And then my second tip is to think outside the box. So these are just tools. So this is what you're going to learn in this program are different ways to just elevate your work. And think outside the box and think, what can I do with this? How can I make my work even better? And how do I use these tools to do that? And then my last tip is reach out to anybody and everybody here. We are so happy to help and discuss and support you in any way we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. This is really testimonies, that are so heartwarming for us all here at the team, trying to bring you this program. And so thank you for your tips also for folks.